Hi, I'm Mikkel Weber, founder and auteur of House of Peregrine. Expat, immigrant, pioneer, none of these were a fit, but Peregrine describes what we are all about perfectly. Those that craft their life story with intention. I've spent the last 6 years in awe of the life-changing connections and stories I have experienced while living abroad, and believe it is time for this adventure to be recognized, celebrated, and elevated to the life stage that it is. Through these interviews, I hope to connect those living internationally more deeply to both the place they are living and with themselves and those around them. We cover everything from international finances and meaning-making to global parenting and relationships to make your time abroad more intentional, edifying, and full of beauty. Find us at houseofperegrine.com, where you can find more ways to connect with the ethos of Peregrine. I hope you enjoy today's guest. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the House of Peregrine Podcast. I'm Mikkel Weber, and this week we are celebrating Keti Koti, the Dutch celebration of the abolition of slavery. So we thought we would bring you a conversation with our own Rashi Favier to shed some light on how othering and racism is still a reality worldwide. Rashi moved to the Netherlands from India just before the pandemic, and in her words, became a person of color overnight. In this clip, she talks about what it means to confront privilege, experience racial othering for the first time as an adult, and the journey of finding her voice and going viral as a content creator and activist. It's a raw, revealing, and important conversation that I feel privileged to bring to you today. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode. So I want to start out because I think when we spoke earlier, I really was struck by this notion of your coming to the Netherlands, bringing new awareness to your own privilege and your own place in the world. So can you tell us that story, if you would?
Yes, I think in India, privilege plays a really big part in how you grow up there. And I have a lot of privileges in India. I have caste privilege, class privilege, also my skin tone. There's so many things that are, going for me there. And I was always aware of that. And I always tried to use my privilege for, bringing awareness and doing something good. And I think moving to the Netherlands suddenly shows you the real class divide also in a country where you move to. So I feel like you just hear things or things happen to you or the way people treat you is so different based on how much privilege you have, which I think is so unfair. And when I moved to the Netherlands, I saw that kind of immediately because suddenly you are a person of color, where in India I was just a person. So I saw a lot of things that I never had to deal with that when I landed in Netherlands, I suddenly was faced with them. Not to say I didn't still have tons of privilege here as well, but it's just something that you have to kind of face in your, I moved here when I was 31. So it's something you just have to be aware of suddenly, which I found sort of interesting. And that sort of made me want to talk about it because I was sure other people were figuring this out as well. So also then taking that privilege and then using it to talk about it because I could talk about it and I had a voice.
Were you shocked? Was it completely unexpected? Would you say this new awareness or these realizations? Would you describe it as shock, or would you describe it as something else?
No, I don't think I was shocked. I'm pretty aware of how, if you're not white, how you're treated in the world. I've seen it firsthand also when I've been around white people in India. You can see instantly how they're treated, better. So I wasn't shocked. I think it was just it was a feeling that I hadn't experienced before, like the first time I faced racism in Amsterdam. It was just a bodily feeling that I've never felt before. So it was just very different and something I wanted to explore, how does this feeling manifest and what it's making me feel, because in India I am the oppressor. So I also wanted to learn about it, this feeling from different points of views and ways. So yeah, it was more just interesting.
Yeah, that's really it's really beautiful the way you say it, that you you went from feeling or being the oppressor in one case to being something the oppressed in another, or the lesser. So you would describe it in when you lived in India growing up there, that you saw people being more privileged, but you never felt like you were oppressed.
I
Is
think in
that,
India, the
do
only
I have
thing where I feel oppressed is because I'm a woman. And India is a very patriarchal society. So definitely that's why I also talk about feminism a lot in my content, because that's the one way I really felt that, it's unfair in my sort of experience. But I was also really aware of how much privilege I have based on caste and class and all of these other things. So that's the difference, I think. But definitely that also brings across here it's not an equal society if you think of genders and the sexes. So here is just an added layer, I think. And it's very interesting how different societies decide how much, privilege you get based on just something that you can't decide or choose for yourself. So yeah.
And would you mind? I have my own interpretation of this because I also came from a very patriarchal place, but I would love to hear how you experience that where you're from. Which, can we tell people from which part of
I'm
India are
from
you?
South
Did
India,
you?
but I'm North Indian, but I grew up in South India.
Okay. And what is that like? If I know nothing because I don't explain what that means. Like, what are the people like where you're from? Or
Well, I grew up. What I always say, I'm from a small town of 3 million people, which, uh, yeah, it's funny, but it's true. It's a smaller town, so it's a bit more chill, more relaxed. But the inequality of the sexes is very inherent in the society, so it's not really geographically, doesn't matter where you are. It's just how the culture is and
Mhm.
how you're treated differently just because you're a woman. And I think the biggest thing is the safety for women. So it's not safe to be outside as a child if you're a girl. It's not safe to walk, out by yourself at night, even sometimes even during the day. There's a lot of catcalling. There's a lot of sort of staring. It depends on what you're wearing a lot. Like if you are wearing something that is not acceptable, you can get blamed for something that happens to you. So it's a lot of victim blaming. I have to say my family is amazing. So I was not raised sort of unequal to like my brother. So it was in my family. It was a very nice environment, but there are relatives and there are people who want to always comment on things. And also women are supposed to do certain things. And if you deviate from that, you're sort of like a bad woman, or you can't be outspoken. You have to sort of just lay low and do the things that society has deemed for you. Like, and I think the biggest thing for me was marriage, because marriage is such a big part of Indian culture, and it's something you just have to do. And this is not just for women, this is also for men. So I think marriage was the biggest thing that was sort of, I didn't feel like I wanted to do exactly what people were telling me to do, or like I wasn't super for arranged marriage. It works for a lot of people. It was not for me. But I felt like, yeah, as a woman, you really have to navigate that, because you have to make a lot of sacrifices if you, get married and, yeah, do certain things that society just wants you to do. And if you just want something different, you're not allowed. So that's sort of,
Yeah.
the dynamic.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to ask, I want to back up, but then I want to go more into this. But what where you grew up, or in India in general, either is fine. What is that divide based on? In where I'm from, it's like based on religion. Religion kind of backs up this servitude of women and all this stuff. But is it the same? Is it just, what would you say it's based on? What gives that notion that women should be less than men or treated differently?
I'm not a history expert, but I think this is what I have read, or sort of this is my information. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I think comes from just the perfection of a patriarchal society. And I know that a lot of it was colonial. So the British brought a lot of their Christian values when they colonized India. So like the dowry system, or women being property, And if you look before the colonization from Britain, which was 300 years, women were much freer. Women would roam around like topless, with just like a thing. So if you see our ancient scriptures, there's so much sort of nudity. There's also there's a lot of sex, like freedom of sex, like sexual, like Kama Sutra comes from India. So I know a lot of it comes from colonization, but I don't know if that's what all of it is. But to me, it's like, it's just how it has been perfected to become like a patriarchal society.
Wow. You've just taught me something new.
Well, I also, when I learned that, I was shocked. but
Yeah.
I definitely, my knowledge of so many things just doesn't, and I have to keep reading because when you are also the oppressor, you are not super knowledgeable on a lot of things. I've also started reading up a lot about anti-caste things. I've followed a lot of accounts. I want to learn more about casteism because it is so well and alive in India right now, and people sort of deflected by saying, oh, it used to be a thing of the past, which is just so not true. So yeah.
Can you explain that just a little bit? I think I know what it is, but would you mind just telling us briefly an overview of what a caste system is?
So a caste system is where the people are divided into 4 categories, and the lower category is the lower caste, and they include certain sections, so Adivasi, Bahujan, Dalit, and they are just not afforded the rights as the rest of the 3 caste divisions would have. They get jobs that are not like considered dirty or lower for people to do.
So this, just so I know, this is based on lineage then?
Yes.
Is it based on lineage?
I mean, again,
so
I'm
who your
not
father
the expert on this.
No, you're not, but you're helping me understand. So it's not based on like how much money you have, it's based on who your ancestors might have.
It also is based on how much money you have, because historically upper caste Brahmin like caste have hoarded a lot of land and money, so it does sort of have an effect on who then gets to have money now based on lineage, of course. So it's all super interconnected, and
Got it. Okay. I know you told me you're not the expert, but you're the expert to me right now. So thank you for answering my questions. Okay. So you didn't know why you were being treated differently as a woman when you went outside of your house. It's just part of your culture. Like that's the water you were swimming in.
Yeah. And I think because of the difference in my home and outside, I think I questioned it more, maybe because my home was different than other people, and I also saw my friends, they were treated differently than from their parents. So like it was just a bit like I was questioning a lot. I was questioning a lot of things, like why do they get to go out and I don't, just because I'm a woman, and why do I not get to wear this? Like I was just questioning a lot, which also you're not supposed to do.
No questioning. Oh, so is that just a thing in the culture, or you just knew inherently you weren't supposed to question?
I think when people tell you don't question anything, you just
it's just out and open, just like a fact. Yeah. That makes total sense. I'm wondering because it sounds a lot like high demand religions, where they say don't question. And so when I see that in like when I hear you saying that in a more like a not religious context, it makes me very curious. So I want to dive in. But okay, so you were always questioning. It sounds like you were, for whatever reason, you always felt a little different, or like you were always kind of wondering and questioning when you weren't supposed to. And so do you think that was what made you always think you wanted to live abroad? Or tell us that story about eventually studying abroad.
I think it stems from what I said about like just wanting different things, and it's either you don't have examples of that around you, or you don't think you can have different things because that's just not the norm. And this is before social media, internet, so your worldview was very much what was around you, or movies or TV, and not really other people living in other countries. You didn't have a worldview because you didn't have a way to see anything because the internet was not a thing. So I think when I was teenager, I just I don't know, I just wanted different things, and I think I was influenced by a lot of American TV sitcoms. I just wanted like, like a free life. I feel like I didn't want to just do the thing where you study, get married, have kids, and a lot of women don't work, and that's changing now. But when I was growing up, like a lot of women didn't work and there was a set role for people, and I just wanted different things. I just didn't know what, but I knew I didn't want that. I knew what I didn't want. So I think moving abroad was me just wanting a bit more freedom to choose what I wanted. And it could have been possible in India, but it's just something that I felt like would be easier, I guess, abroad. And I also wanted to travel. I think I also I wanted to explore more cultures because I saw this on, TV or movies, and I thought it was so interesting that there are people who can be so different, but also they're humans. And yeah, just to meet different kinds of people, which again, if I lived in a bigger city in India, I would not maybe think how I thought, but I lived in a smaller town where we didn't have a lot to do, or, we had the same people around us, like a small town sort of thing. So I think if I didn't grow up there, I might be different. Like if I grew up in Mumbai or Delhi or something, but yeah, that's was sort of the thing.
Yeah,
like I just didn't want that. I wanted something else, and I didn't know how else to get it, I guess.
I highly know what you're talking about. I don't know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. That I could have, I think me and a lot of people listening to this can relate. So that led you to studying in London. Is that right?
Yes. So I wanted to do something creative. I know, like for my studies, I studied fine arts, and then I really wanted to do fashion, and I really wanted to study abroad because it just looked like so much fun. And I think I went to London in 2010, and around then social media was like a little bit of a thing. Internet was a thing. So I also saw a lot of people doing it, that you could study abroad. And I got into London College of Fashion, which was a big like moment because I didn't think I would. And then my parents let me go, and it was amazing. I think it was my first and what do you say, view of the world outside of my little sort of world that I saw. And to be honest, I loved it. I was 21. It was amazing. So I think that's where the insect bit me for exploring different things. And yeah.
The insect bit me. I love that. You got the bug.
Yeah,
we always say you got like the bug.
I think I was Hindi, but...
No, I like the way you said it. Actually, I'm going to start saying that. That's amazing. And so you studied in Europe and felt like you wanted to remain abroad. And so tell us about, I really want to know, because you were in London and was it more international? Why do you think when you came to the Netherlands, it was that you felt, I love this phrase that you use because I can relate in a different way, but you just suddenly became a person of color overnight. I love that you said that. I love that you're living that. But why do you think, can you tell us about that moment? Because you were obviously younger and all these things. So a lot comes with age and experience, and also social movements going on.
I think the biggest
Tell us
difference was that I was a student. I think student life is so different than actually living somewhere because you don't have to deal with a lot of things. And I think England and London just in general has a lot of Indians. So you don't really, you're like a part of the crowd, I feel like. And again, I was young, and maybe I did face racism back then, but I just didn't know it was that. I think I was just also a bit more aware of why people treat you a certain way. I think I was very naive back then. And yeah, I only had a visa for 2 years in London, so I knew I was going to go back. It's not like I could stay there. So I knew I had to study and leave again. So I didn't.
So you do experience a place when it's temporary, you may experience it differently. That makes a lot of sense too. Yeah. So when you came to the Netherlands, it felt like you wanted to make it a little more permanent. So that's one way. So can you describe like that moment, or if there was a moment where you're just like, oh, wow, this is something completely different. I would love to hear that story if you have.
In Netherlands, you mean?
Yeah, in the Netherlands. I mean, that moment, it's again so powerful to me that you say overnight I became a person of color. Like that's an amazing notion.
I
So
think what really,
what's that story?
yeah, I think it was the job search sort of experience, because I had to immediately, I even started looking before I moved. And then when I moved, I was still looking for jobs. And I knew a lot of Dutch people when I moved here. And then they would tell me, like, you should probably put there in block letters that you have a visa to work here, because just because you have an Indian name, they will probably throw away a resume. Like multiple people told that to me. It's not like one person. You know, and then just the fact that you're Indian on a resume, they would just not pay attention to it, or the other side, which is like, oh, you're brown, so you might actually get in on diversity quota or something. Like you hear all of these things which I've never heard about before. So I think that was when I was like, oh, so this actually matters. And then for sure, the first time I faced like blatant racism in the Pipe, which is like the most like international area of Amsterdam. And I really, that whole experience just changed my sort of like, wow, you will actually discriminate against me just because of who I look like, you know?
Tell us that. Do you mind telling us that story about being in the Pipe?
Well, I've also made a TikTok about it, but I was in a pop-up shop. I was like working in with a brand, and we were doing like a pop-up shop, and this older Dutch woman came in to try on clothes, and there were 3 of us in the store. None of us were Dutch. So it was not because I was not Dutch. The other 2 people were white, French and Danish, and I was Indian. And she would just not talk to me. She was just not talk to me. I would ask her a question. She would just ignore me and wait for those people to come out. And like I thought I did something, because that's immediately what you do. You go inward and see what you did, and somehow you represent 1.3 billion Indians. Because if you do something, you're ruining the names of Indians. But white people never have that responsibility. If one white person does something, doesn't mean the entire culture gets a black mark. But I thought I was doing something wrong, so I started complimenting her, like, oh, that color looks really good on you, because I know white people love that compliment. But and then she just was like not talking, and then she was smiling, and I smiled back, and she's like, no, I'm not smiling at you, I'm smiling at her. And it was not because I didn't speak Dutch, because the other 2 didn't. It was not because I was not Dutch, because the other people were not. Because I know that's like, you get annoyed that people don't speak Dutch in your country. I get that. But yeah, so that was just like, and I felt it like visceral in my body. Like I felt it. It wasn't something I felt. She doesn't want to engage with me because there's nothing else. And I still doubted myself, but I couldn't doubt the feeling I was feeling. That was a very like my hands were shaking. I was feeling shame. It was so many different things. And then I told some people what happened, and they were like, Rashi, that's racism. Like the white people had to tell me like that woman was, and also then some people told me like, this is common, because in the Netherlands, it's a bit under the radar. This was before I made content and everything, because now I have a lot of hate racist comments, but you kind of see the reality a little bit. But back then I knew this existed, but when it happens to you, you do get like, wow, is this what it feels like?
Thank you so much for listening. As we honor Keti Koti, may we continue to listen, reflect, and use our voices to challenge the legacies of oppression worldwide. Just like Rashi does with her courage and clarity. You can hear her full episode by following the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed our show. For the latest insights on living internationally, join us at houseofperegrine.com to find out how you can connect with our community. Let's craft our life story with intention together.